Okay, so here we go with that research I was just talking about. So, what if the person had no choice? Again, there's no choice, fully situational based. What are participants going to infer? So, this is Jones and Harris from 67, and participants read an essay that was either, and you can tell kind of how 1967 this was, pro Fidel Castro or anti Castro. So, they were told exactly what they had to write about. And th this was a very politically charged topic at the time. Today, maybe it could be pro or anti-Putin essay. That might be appropriate today. Um, or Netanyahu might be a good one to put in here. Anyway, okay. So they read one or the other essay, and they were told the writer either chose the position they wrote about or was assigned the position. Then they judged what does the writer actually believe, and what should happen when the writer had no choice. Okay, so with the choice condition. Okay, with those who wrote the pro-Castro essay, would it be reasonable to infer that the writer was pro-Castro? Again, I think it was yes, because again, there was a choice. The behavior to write that might reflect their attitude. Now, with the no choice condition, again, they were told that they're going to write this article. What should we conclude? I'm not going to say anything strong about their actual attitude because they were required to write this pro Castro or anti Castro article. Because again, the situation is going to explain the behavior. They were required to write this. And we have a very important situational information. So basically, if I assign you to argue that pineapple belongs on pizza, does that prove that you actually believe it? No, absolutely not. I'm telling you to do it for a grade. You're going to possibly do it. So the prediction here of the researchers is the assigned position. We can't judge strongly. We shouldn't strongly influence the judgment of the writer's real beliefs because again, they were told to do it. Okay, so that's a logical prediction. So what actually happened? So even when participants knew the writer had no choice, the participants know the writer was assigned the position, and the situational constraint was obvious. With the pro-Castro essay, they found that, again, in general, participants said the writer's probably more pro-Castro. Okie dokie, yeah. With the anti-Castro, participants said the writer is probably more anti-Castro. There's no choice. The situation was obvious in that the writer had no choice. This is like saying, I'm telling you to write an article about how pineapple is awesome on pizza. You're going to write it. That does not mean that you think that pineapple is awesome on pizza. You did not have a choice. And then people reading it and saying, like, yeah, this person, I know they didn't have a choice to write it, but they definitely like pineapple on pizza. No, that makes no sense. People still assumed that no, this was attributable to the person, that their attitude was that no, pineapple's great on pizza. So this research, it did go to show that we underestimate the situation and overestimate the person, even when we know the situation plays a huge role. Knowing about the situation and its influence doesn't guarantee that we'll actually use it in judging a person or explaining behavior. And this leads us to the fundamental attribution error. This is going to be the tendency to overestimate dispositional causes. And that we are going to be more likely, especially when somebody does something negative, behaves in some negative way, we're more likely to attribute this to who they are as a person. This is who they are. Really, sorry, I'm late. There was traffic. You are flawed as a human. J'accuse. This is about you. No, I know that there's traffic, too bad. You suck as a human. Underestimate the situational causes. What was happening around them? I don't care you told me there was traffic. Does not matter. You're a flawed human. It's also called the correspondence bias. And it feels like a direct reflection. The behavior feels like a direct reflection of the person, even when the situation matters. Like, I know, yeah, there was traffic, but you're still lazy. You still suck. And this goes back to the study we just talked about, and that we're still more likely to apply personal reasons to people's behavior instead of taking the situation into consideration. Again, when somebody doesn't respond to your text, you might jump to the conclusion that they don't care, or they don't care. It's something about them. But they could be busy, phone dead, maybe they're working. You guys have probably heard this with instructors. Somebody fails a test. They're accused of being lazy. Was their situation taken into consideration? I hope sometimes it is. I really do. Because maybe they were sick. Again, maybe there's a family situation. Maybe they're working 3 jobs. Now, the thing here is that it's important to know that behavior will reflect both the individual as a person and the situation. It's just not one or the other. It's usually very gray. So I'm not saying that it never reflects who people are. But the fundamental attribution error does show that we have a weighting problem here, and that we put too much weight on explaining people's behavior as to who they are and too little on the situation. And so we're not saying the situation is always the answer. It's saying we systematically fail to give it enough weight, referring back to that Castro research. So why would our brains make this mistake so consistently? Okay. Okay, and we'll just go over a couple of factors here. There's more of these, but these are from Gilbert and Malone. We're just going to talk about 4 of them. So, okay, the person is more salient. They're more noticeable. We see them behaving. We see them doing something. We don't see all the forces acting on them. Again, somebody's late. We see them being late. We don't see the construction zone. Also, situations are often invisible. We might not know what happened before. A student fails the test. Again, teachers might make the assumption that they're lazy and just don't study. They don't know what else is going on in that person's life. We underestimate situational power. We think like, I would never act that way. And that's easy to say when you're not in that situation. It's very easy to say that when you're not in a situation. We're going to talk about Milgram in this class. And again, that's the shock study. You say, I would never go all the way to the top of that shock generator. Yes, you would. Also, dispositional judgments happen quickly. Again, we talk about automaticity here. We want those fast explanations. He's rude, she's lazy, they're irresponsible. Thinking about the situation requires much more work and effort. It almost requires that system 2 type of thinking. In that, what else might be happening? It makes you stop and think. Personality is an easy explanation. The situation and all the other factors take time. The person's visible and convenient. The situation usually requires investigation. So, and last class we talked about, when with controlled thinking becoming harder when we're distracted or cognitively overloaded. Attribution kind of works the same way. And this gets us into Gilbert's 2-step model. So, Gilbert, okay, with Gilbert, we're looking at attribution being an automatic, somewhere between automatic and controlled processing. So, with step 1, automatic. What does this behavior say about the person? Okay, we see a behavior, we immediately make a trait inference. It's fast, it's effortless. Again, Joe kicks Fido. Joe's an aggressive, horrific person. Step two, controlled. Wait, hold up. What's going on here? We stop, we consider the situation. Wait. Okay. Did Fido bite Joe? Is Fido a horrific, adorable little puppy? What did Fido do here? That's step two. That it's controlled. You have to slow yourself down. Here's the problem. It requires attention, motivation, and cognitive resources. Step one, it happens easily. It happens automatically. Two, effortful. And that's the problem. And so as a result of that, because it's effortful, we rarely get to step two. And as a result, we make an attribution error. And we do not correct for step one. Also, when are we least likely to make it to step two? When we're tired, distracted, rushed, stressed, multitasking, or just when we don't care. We have to be motivated and cognitively able to get to step two to stop and think like, wait, what else is going on here? And again, so the situation isn't necessarily ignored because we don't know better. We may fail to correct the judgment we already made because of these additional characteristics. And researchers have actually tested this. And again, Gilbert and colleagues in 1988. So here we go. So participants watched a woman behaving anxiously during an interview. They were told she was discussing either anxiety-provoking topics, things that were embarrassing or uncomfortable, or neutral things, ordinary, non-threatening. Okay, so let's see here. And some participants also had to rehearse an 8-digit number as well. All right, so let's see here. Okay, and why add the number? Yes, we're doing it for cognitive load. Fewer researchers for controlled processing. So, um, in regard to this, okay. So with the anxiety-provoking topic, okay, in regard to the woman looking anxious and she's reading the anxiety-provoking topic. Obvious, you can see like the behavior has obvious situational explanation. She's reading an anxiety-provoking topic, something embarrassing. With the neutral one, the situation might not explain it, so it might be more dispositional in nature. So that could kind of be an initial assumption. But again, we're interested in that cognitive load. So the findings, when people were not under cognitive load, she looks anxious, but the situation explains it. So they were able to make that situational correction. So they were more able to use the topic and context. Of course, she's anxious. Okay, I can see she's anxious, and I might initially attribute that to who she is, but oh, look, she's reading something that would make me more than anxious and blush. So it must actually be because she's reading something that's anxiety producing. So they were able to adjust that trait judgment, whereas those who were under cognitive load, again, she looked anxious, and so must be an anxious person. And so they went to that dispositional inference, and that's why, again, they were under cognitive load, rehearsing that 8-digit number. They were not able to get to step two. So it's not that the overloaded people it's not that they forgot the situation existed. They just had less capacity to correct the initial judgment and get to step two. We have to have that controlled thinking ability in order to get to step two. So when we talk about this, okay, so what happens to attribution when we're angry and tired? We're probably more likely to make quicker judgments. We're probably less charitable. We might, get an argument and just say things like, oh my God, that's just who you are. So, obviously, slowing down, gathering context can really matter in this process. But another pattern with attribution, we don't explain our own behavior exactly the same way we explain everybody else's. So when we do something that's not great, we don't explain it like we do with other people. With other people, we're like, well, that's just who they are. We don't do that with ourselves. Okay, so yeah, when we explain why other people do what they do, well, that's just who they are. When we explain ourselves, well, you don't understand what the situation is that I was in. Again, if if I am late, yeah, traffic was terrible. If somebody else is late, they're just irresponsible. If somebody else cuts me off, again, I'm going to say horrific things to my windshield. But if I cut somebody off, oh my God, I'm in a hurry. I'm going to be late for something. I am so sorry. I didn't see you there. It's so foggy out. It's the situation. Okay. Another example, and this is the actor observer effect. Um, again, spilled milk. You spilled milk, that's your fault. You did that. How reckless of you. I spill milk. Oh my God, that must have been the wind. That's the active, sorry, it's not funny. That's the actor observer effect. And then again, with the actor, that's us. We know our own context, and so the situation is highly available, even though it probably wasn't the wind that spilled the milk. Now, when it's the observer, again, we only see the person behaving. We can't see the situation that they're in. So when it's the other person's behavior, it's them. The person is what is most salient. When it's us, the situation is most salient. Some other examples. Okay, I failed a test. Oh my God, it was so hard. It was so unfair. The instructor didn't even go over anything that was on the test. It's about the test, it's not about me. They failed the test. Well, you didn't even study. You're not even paying attention in class. Again, it's about them as a person. When I fail, it's about something external to me. When they fail, it's about them. In an argument, if I snap, it's because I got pushed too far. You can't push me that far. If somebody else snaps in an argument, they've got an anger problem. And again, this is not absolute. This isn't always what we do. It's just a cognitive bias. It's a tendency. The context is going to matter. And so, yes, this is connected to the fundamental attribution error, and that the general tendency is to underweight the situation when we judge others. And with the actor-observer effect, the contrast is between explanation for ourselves and others. Um, and so, yeah, just as a quick reflection, what information do you have about yourself that you usually don't have about another person? That's going to make all the difference in this. Your history, intentions, pressure, reasons, circumstances. What just happened 5 minutes ago? We experience our own context, but we only observe everybody else's behavior. Okay, we've got another bias here, another cognitive bias. So, okay, so this has to do with us. When we talk about self-serving bias, you think about yourself, okay, if that's helpful. So we're explaining ourselves. So with the self-serving bias, this is the tendency to explain our success as a result of us and failure to things outside of me. Again, I win at tennis. I'm a great athlete. I fail. I lose a tennis match. The umpire sucked. Another example. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't giggle at these. Okay, I win. I'm the best athlete of all time. Of course I am. It's about me and who I am. I lose. It's Bob's fault. It's not even his name. It's Fred. Bob, it's your fault. Still not my name. Doesn't matter. Okay. Again, oh, you ace a test. Yeah, it's because I studied hard. I'm smart. I knew the material. I am good at this. Me. You get an F on the same thing. Test was unfair. Instructor didn't go over anything. The questions were confusing. The questions actually weren't written very well. I didn't have enough time. Has nothing to do with me. It's all external to me. Success is about me. Failure is all about the situation. Again, win. Okay, teams. I got lots of hopefully have athletes watching this. Maybe. Win a game. Awesome. It's because we're just that good. Lose a game, refs suck. The ref made horrible calls. So, and again, here's the thing, the external explanation, it can be true. Refs suck. Sometimes we don't write great questions. That does happen. And the internal explanation can be true. You could be the greatest athlete. That's awesome. You could study really hard and it's about you. Yes, that's true. Now, but the thing is, the bias though, again, it's a systematic difference in how we explain and plus the versus the outcomes. And so we tend to do this. Okay? We don't always do this. We tend to do this. And the reason we do this is because it protects our self-esteem. We can maintain a positive self-image. It helps us make sense of setbacks. But the potential downside is we don't take responsibility. It's harder to learn from mistakes. And so, okay, let's put this all together. So, again, let's go back to Taylor's. Taylor's still hanging out with us. Taylor's working on a group project. Again, has arrived 15 minutes late. Hasn't finished their part. Gives short answers. Leaves before the group's finished. Group member says, Taylor's lazy and doesn't care about this project. Again, so before we decide, what else would you want to know? And again, you can pause this and think it through if you want, but otherwise, I'm just going to think, or I'm just going to talk it through so we can finish this lecture. So, yes, what's observable? Okay, late, unfinished work, short essays, left early. Okay, and then what do we assume? Okay, lazy, doesn't care. Okay, we're talking about Kelly's covariation model. What are we going to need? Okay, does Taylor always do this? Is this just a one-time event? Does Taylor behave this way across all of their groups or only here? Are other group members struggling too? Are there unusual demands in this group? Okay, but maybe Taylor worked an overnight shift because a coworker called in sick and had to leave the meeting early to pick up their kid. There could be a lot of other things happening here. So does Taylor's behavior change? No, our attribution changes. Now that's what's important here. Again, there's still lateness, unfinished work, all of that, but the context changes and so that changes the meaning. Again, we're not putting it on Taylor being a lazy person. We can explain that behavior based upon the situation. And again, if we went with the Taylor is lazy, and that's a fundamental attribution error, in that we're attributing that behavior to who Taylor is as a person, the person over the situation. And if a group member behaves similarly, like, okay, I had a lot going on, but Taylor was being lazy. And that's because, again, I can see my entire situation. I can only see how Taylor behaves. Or, again, maybe Taylor, the project went badly because my group wasn't organized. Okay, that could be potentially self-serving if Taylor did say that. And again, does knowing about attribution mean Taylor has no responsibility? And the answer is no. Taylor still has responsibility. Understanding the situation does not excuse behavior. We just have to say this here. We're just explaining it. We're not excusing it away. But we can consider the context or the situation and hold the person accountable for their behavior. So better attribution interpretation, it's not about making excuses. It's about making better causal judgments. So in finishing this up here, when judging others, yes, let's separate what we observed from what we inferred. Let's ask what the situation might help to explain. Let's look for patterns, not just isolated moments in time. Consider whether you would explain your own behavior differently. Slow down when the judgment matters. We are natural psychologists, but we're not always accurate ones. And that's where I'm going to leave you for today. I hope you've made it this far in this lecture, and if you have, thank you. It means more than you know, and I will see you again soon.